everybody, Tiny House Streaming here. I mentioned in my last video that like if anybody was interested in the pre-trip, I would post the videos, and like I would probably, instead of doing one long video, do section by section. And sorry, I'm turning my back to you. I know that's so rude, but what it is like, here's the paper that I got from Prime. There's 10 pages here, and it just goes over like component by component or part by part or whatever you want to say, of everything that you need to know to do the pre-trip. Really quick, if you don't know what a pre-trip is, I mean, if you're coming to if you're coming to a school to learn to be a truck driver, most likely you've YouTubed people and you've heard of like pre-trip inspection. So you kind of have a gist to know that what the pre-trip is you have to know certain compartments on a truck, what they do or what their purpose is on the truck, where they are on the truck. So the pre-trip shows the examiner that, because you know, a big truck, you have to make sure that everything is safe and all of that. So that's the purpose of a pre-trip. You have to demonstrate to the examiner that you know all of these things, so they know that when you're out there by yourself on the road, you can identify certain things. Like if you have a broken leaf spring, that can be that can cause major damage if you're on the freeway. So like every day, and you're supposed to, most people don't do this, but every time you get back in your truck to start driving again, you're supposed to, let me just turn this TV down real quick. You're supposed to do a walk around of your truck. And these are all the things that you're looking and you're checking for to make sure that they're in proper working condition or safe, you know, and safe, they're not broken or dripping or leaking or whatever the case may be. So that's what a pre-trip is. And you have to know all of these things and all of the little words. Here, let me get up close so you can kind of get an understanding. See, like, for instance, belt-driven alternator. You have to know what that looks like, where it's at on the truck, and you have to know all of these wordings. You have to be able to cite that in your pre-trip when you're doing your pre-trip to test out for your CDL license. So I was telling you guys that, like, when I was in the truck, I was literally just reading this, you know, like there's pages of it. And there's different compartments. So like this is the full pre-trip, and it's all the compartments are all these 10 pages. But if you aren't mechanically inclined, or you don't know what an alternator looks like, or a belt-driven water pump, like, I'm not a mechanic. I don't know what any of that stuff looks like. I'm a girl. No offense to any of you girls that know, because there's a lot of girls that know. But I don't. I'm like a Hello Kitty type of girl. So when I sat in my trainer's truck, I was like, to me, these are just words. Like, they don't mean anything. I can't picture any of this in my head. And it was just like, she's like, you know, start going through it and memorizing this stuff. And it was just like, what? So, I mean, I know that some of you guys are going to know, like, at least what an alternator is. Like, most of you guys will probably know what some of this stuff is. I'm a little bit more ignorant on the fact, I think, than most people, or most people that would be interested in driving a big truck. But I didn't know what any of this stuff was. Like, I literally know how to put gas in the car, how to check the little oil stick, and I knew how to check the tire air pressure. But beyond that, had no clue. So this didn't help me really to sit and like read these, and you know, like, it just didn't help me at all. So the way that I've been learning, and like now I'm kind of on it, is I had to make these flashcards, which somebody showed me this is a good way, and I'm passing that on to you because I think it's awesome. It's an awesome way to learn. And I'm more of a visual person. I need to be able to like see it, know what it looks like, touch it, feel it, not just, because I just don't know anything about the inside of a car or under a trailer or any of that stuff. Like, yeah. So what I did was, like, here you go. This is page 1. See, at the top, it's the engine compartment. The engine compartment is on page 1, and I can't even turn freaking pages. And page 2. That's all the stuff that you need to know, where it's at, what it looks like, and what it does. And basically, these words that you need to remember is kind of a gist of, like, not really what it does, but what you need to be able to look at. Like if you're doing your pre-trip, you know, you already got your license, you're in the middle of Salt Lake City and you're doing your pre-trip, you're walking around your truck and you're open the hood up and you look at the alternator. You might not really get what the alternator does, but from learning this, you're going to know that it needs to be properly mounted and secure. It needs to not have any cracks, bends, or breaks on it. It needs to have all the little wires that's hooked to it connected to it. The belt doesn't need to be cracked or frayed. And the free play of the belt, like if you put your finger on the belt and move it, it shouldn't move any more than 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. So like you learning this stuff will tell you that. If any of those things are not the case when you do your pre-trip, then you'll know, well, hold on. Something is wrong with my belt-driven alternator. I can't necessarily fix it. Don't really know what's wrong with it, but something's wrong. The wire's not connected. I know that it should be connected. So like it kind of gives you like where you still might not know what the heck it does, but you'll be able to identify if something's wrong where you shouldn't get in the truck and drive away down the freeway because something might like blow up or stop working or something like that. So you need to know these things and you need to know it to pass your test. So what I did was I took everything on these papers for each section. Like 2 pages is the engine compartment. 2 pages is the trailer. 2 pages is the, what is it called? Driver's door fuel area. And like, so, you know, like there's, and on each section, like I'll call this engine compartment, that's one section. In each section, there's different components within the section. So here for the engine compartment, that's the page we were just looking at. You take your first card. You, of course, mark the section, engine compartment. The first thing on this page is leaks. See there? This first thing, leaks. And it says check under your truck for leaks. So I put leaks, and the point of this is like when you're this is so you can kind of learn yourself. Like you don't need somebody to like work the flashcards for you. So like when I'm sitting here, I'm looking, it says leaks. So I say, okay, what they want me to remember to say is to check for leaks under your truck. That's what that says right there. Check for leaks under your truck. So I write the answer on the part that I need to memorize on the back. And so I say it out loud to like see if I memorize it. And then what I do is I flip the card around to see, did I get it right? Got that right. Go to the next one. The belt-driven alternator. So I look at it. I say, okay, what is it supposed to say on the belt-driven alternator? Like, what am I supposed to be? Because you have to tell, as the instructor's going around when you're taking your test, you need to know each component, and you need to be able to cite out without looking at a paper or anything. Like you have to memorize this. You need to cite what they want to hear, that you know what you're looking for. So I'm looking that it's properly mounted and secured, that it is not cracked, bent, or broken, that all wires are connected, that there are no frays or cracks on the belt, and that the belt has a free play of no more than 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. So that's me memorizing it or thinking that I know the answer. So now I'm going to look at the back of my card where the answers are written. And I got the answers from the paper right there. I just wrote them on the back of the card. And so I see, did I get it right? I look at all the stuff. Well, actually, I'm looking at the wrong back of the card. I'm looking at all the stuff. And yes, I did get that right. So you move on. You go to the next one. General hoses on the passenger side. I know that the hoses should be properly mounted and secured on both ends. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts. And is not leaking. So that's what I think that the answer is. Or what I should know to be able to tell the examiner. Yeah. So I look at the back. Okay. I got that one right. Go to and even if you get it wrong, you still continue to go to the next one. But like it kind of tells you that, okay, like if I get the coolant wrong, I need to study that one a little bit more. So coolant reservoir should be properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking, and the coolant level should be filled to manufacturer specification. That should be the answer of what I'm supposed to memorize. There's the answers right there. So I got that one right. And see how I'm saying when you do flashcards and one at a time, I picked it up. Like, I've been looking at this paper for 10 days before I started doing the flashcard. None of this stuck. The only thing that stuck, because see, my trainer didn't want to have me do an actual pre-trip or look at stuff in her truck because it's different in a Peterbilt than it is in a Freightliner. And I'll be testing, like doing the pre-trip on a Freightliner. So she didn't want to get me confused by learning this stuff on a Peterbilt. And like when it come test day, I'm like confused. Is it on the passenger side, the driver side? Like some things on a Freightliner or like a Volvo is red and like a part might be red, the air compressor, I think. And on a Freightliner, it's not. So like she didn't want to confuse me on different things. She would rather me learn on the truck that I'm going to test out. Like just learn from the right way from the right truck. But she said what you should do is start reading these and try to memorize the wording. Well, I mean, she had good intentions, but that's not the way I learn, you know. So for me, I'm just like reading it, and this didn't mean anything. It's just a bunch of words jumble on a paper. It didn't mean nothing to me until I actually was able to get back to the pad yesterday morning, and we actually did a walk around, and I saw what they look like. The alternator's here, the water pump's here, the airbags are here. Like I saw where things were, and I'm a visual learner. Like I learn pretty well when I can see it or touch it or play with it. So once I knew where everything was, and then I did the flashcards and started writing all the stuff down to memorize the wording. Because like when I know what a drive axle or whatever it's called, when I know what that is and I know how it looks, then I know if it's supposed to be properly mounted and secured or if it's supposed to be properly mounted and secured at both ends, because I have a visual where it's hooked to something on both ends. That kind of gives me a clue of how it's supposed to be mounted. So like it helps me to like know what stuff looks like, even though I really don't know what the stuff does, or like I don't know what a belt driven alternator does, but I know what it looks like now, and I know it has little wires coming from it. So as I'm trying to memorize the wording, I know that part of the wording is going to be something about the little wires connected to it. And I know that it's belt driven. So I know that belts shouldn't be cracked or frayed. And I know that most of the belts on the truck are always going to have to be a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch free play. So like when I start to be able to visualize a part of the truck, it helps me kind of remember what the wording, because the wording is very repetitive. Like everything here on this pre-trip pretty much has to be properly mounted or secured. That's for everything. Because I mean, if it ain't properly mounted or secured, something's wrong. So everything needs to be properly mounted or secured. Some things you have to add at both ends if it's hooked to something at both ends. Like a shock absorber is hooked at the top and hooked at the bottom. So when you say it, you have to say properly mounted and secured at both ends. Some things are only hooked at one end, so you would only say properly mounted and secured. If it's a hose, it needs to have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, because it's like rubber. It can be cut open or, you know, bulged out if I guess something gets too hot, and I don't really know. But if it's a hose, it needs to have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, ABC. If it's something hard, like alternator's metal, then it has to be not cracked, bent, or broken, because like an alternator is not going to have a bulge because it's metal, but rubber hoses will. So I remember CBB. Like, and you know, there's just different ways that you're going to remember, but just my tip to you guys is making these flashcards and learning stuff one by one versus reading this paper. It just, I mean, yeah, it's going to hurt your hand to write them all out, but it really helps to start memorizing. And once you start memorizing, like you get on this road and you keep going. So, and then like, you know, so these are all the engine compartment. Then you go down to the driver's door fuel area and you write all the stuff down for that section, and each one like one by one. So that's how I would suggest that if you're not just like where you know cars, because like if you know car parts and stuff, and like, or if you're a mechanic or something where you already know these parts, then chances are you're going to be mechanically inclined enough to like already kind of know that they shouldn't be broken, bent, or cracked or whatever. Like you're going to know those things. So it's going to be kind of easy for you to probably pick it up off of reading like in this list style way of learning, because you already have a grasp of what it looks like, what it does, like what its purpose is in the vehicle. If you don't know what these things are, or, you know, then this way is probably the best way. But this way might not help you too much if you don't know what things look like. Like for me, once I visually was able to see it, and then I know, okay, I took that both ends, or it hooked only at one end, or it holds water, like oil. Well, the oil, you don't really say not leaking. You just check the dipstick or make sure it's filled to manufacturer specification. But like the coolant level or the windshield wiper fluid, stuff like that, like if it's water, of course, you don't want it to be leaking. So like you have to know that like that's going to be part of the answer, that it's not leaking. So like once you visually see it once, and like I think that it could probably even work if you see a picture of it. So like if you do the flashcards, and whatever school you're going to, like I told you, I would suggest asking a recruiter to send you a copy, like a PDF file or some way you can print it out, Word, a Microsoft Word, or however they have it, send you a file of their pre-trip inspection. You can print this out, and hopefully they might be smart like Prime is, and where they'll tell you what year, what make and model of truck, what type of trailer it is, and you can actually Google pictures of like the underside of a 53-foot Wabash trailer with air ride suspension. I don't know if that's Googleable or not, but you know, it doesn't hurt. Or like when you're at the grocery store and there's that truck that's sitting outside while the driver's inside, you don't have to touch the truck, but you can just walk around and look at the truck and like kind of get a grasp of stuff. I don't really know, but this will help you, I think. So I'm just like passing along good information. Hopefully that does help somebody, because it's made the pre-trip and learning the pre-trip and getting everything down, like the difference of night and day, the flashcards versus this list style of learning. So I hope that helps somebody. And that gives you an idea of how, like, a good way to set your flashcards up, and like how, so you can test yourself. This is also good, like when you are in your orientation, if you guys like come to little groups, like here in Salt Lake City, your group is probably going to be pretty small, how we started with 5. But in Missouri, and I would suggest this to no matter what school or like where you're going. This is not just like a Prime thing. This is probably going to be a good learning method for anybody, regardless of where you're going. But like the Missouri Prime, like I think I mentioned this in another video, like the instructors here, like the trainers, they say like in Missouri, they get like 100 to 150 people every Monday in orientation. So like I'm sure there you break out into smaller groups, and you know, this could probably work and help all of you guys learn. Like one person hold the flashcards and try to remember, or somebody like call out the answer. And like, as you're hearing people call it out, you'll start picking it up, but it can kind of help everybody. So you don't have to self-study the way I'm doing. Like you guys, you know, or get with the partner and like you do them and they do you. Anyways, I got a phone call and my camera stopped, but I pretty much had shared everything I needed to share with you guys. The only thing that I will say that I don't really have a suggestion on is how to memorize all of the components. Like, because you not only have to memorize the words, but keep in mind that you need to actually memorize that you need to call out the belt-driven alternator, the general hoses, the coolant, the belt-driven water pump, the oil level, the power steering pump, the steering linkage, the spring hangers. Like you will get points deducted. Like say you're doing your pre-trip and you forget that the steering linkage is one of the things that you're supposed to know and, you know, tell the examiner point to and say. So like you go around the thing and like you get everything perfect, but you forgot the steering linkage. That's going to cost you points. So you also need to remember everything that you need to remember to say during the pre-trip, because you can't have this paper with you. I don't really have a suggestion on how to memorize that. And right now, that's the thing that I'm trying to memorize, is remembering everything that I need to say. Because like while I might have the wording down, like on the flashcard, like as you go through the flashcard, it tells you what it is. But you know, on test day, you're not going to have the flashcard, so you need to like remember that the engine compartment has like 25 things that I need to remember to say. But you're going to be nervous and stuff. You're not going to be able to like count that I've already went through like 6 of them. I have, you know, number 7 is this, number 8 is this. So somehow try to memorize so you're not skipping over things and like get points deducted because you just forgot to mention a steering linkage. So I hope that helps. I will talk to you guys later. Good luck for anybody coming out here doing the pre-trip. Wish me luck and have a great night, guys. Bye.